Going to attack.
Are you sure?
I am positive. The moment I mentioned that we weren't going to remove the mines, we both knew there'd be war. Everything else was just words.
What's up, lore masters? The future for Starfleet past the Deep Space Nine era is pretty bleak. While Discovery-era episodes are very much in tune with the social justice issues of the modern day, Starfleet has distinctly become a militarized outfit, and the universe is much darker compared to what we saw in previous iterations, especially when you take a look at Star Trek: The Next Generation. Ironically, though, for how much people dislike these new series, all of them have been shaped by one very specific event: the Dominion War. Let's just get into it.
But one thing is certain, we're losing the peace, which means a war could be our only hope.
For those who haven't seen my breakdown of the Dominion War itself, it was a conflict between the Federation Alliance and the Dominion, spanning multiple quadrants, including the Alpha and Beta Quadrant. It pitted the Federation, Romulans, and Klingons against the Dominion and Cardassians. It also involved several smaller governments and sectors. In my 8+ hour video, I detailed how it all began and its aftermath. I'll link that below for those curious. As a brief summary, the hard-fought battles of the 23rd century led to a complacent and egotistical mid-24th century. The alliance with the Klingons and withdrawal of the Romulans left the Federation unopposed. This resulted in officers who viewed combat as a minor province of their duties.
I prefer brains over brawn as well. I think it's a waste of effort to test our combat skills. It's a minor province in the makeup of a starship captain.
Man, that clip never gets old. All of this would come crashing down when the Federation encountered the Dominion, a fascist organization bent on bringing them to heel. It escalated into a war that consumed both the Alpha and the Beta quadrants. What's striking is how this event, originally meant to just be a few episodes, fundamentally shifted the Federation and Starfleet in universe, explaining all of the other series. Yes, dear friends, that includes Discovery and Picard. Don't believe me? Let's just break it down.
Then, before I knew it, the Borta, the Jem'Hadar...
The Jem'Hadar? You fought the Dominion? Ah, the shapeshifters sent many warriors to Stovacor. I wish I could have seen it.
No, you do not. There was no honor, just massacres.
In Star Trek Lower Decks, perhaps the lightest of the adult-oriented Trek shows, we see the impacts of the war on both people and technology. Look no further than Mariner Beckett, a broken individual shaped by her losses and experiences as a Dominion War veteran. Demoralized by the war, she hides in the lower decks of the ship, keeping herself a lower rank to avoid facing her trauma and loss. This also manifests in behaviors that would have gotten her expelled if not for nepotism. The technology during this time in Trek history is confusing. We see remnants of the old Federation in ship construction, like the California class, but also a shift towards a more militaristic style, such as the Luna class. Ships are given specific roles similar to what we saw before, with engineering, tactical, and command vessels. This isn't too far past the Dominion War, so we still see traces of the Next Generation era. However, in the background, you can tell something is changing, which leads us into Picard. In the Star Trek Picard series, we see a super advanced Starfleet with transporter portals, advanced ships, and more.
Targeting phasers.
Those are Echelon-class mid-model starships with a traceable payload. One hit, if it doesn't kill us, they'll be able to track the residual ionic energy as we flee.
Yet there are clues that this is a more militaristic organization. The uniforms are more crisp and the phasers have become more advanced, capable of tracking targets after hitting them. The proliferation of Section 31, now known by more than just a secretive few, and its handling of internal security also indicates a shift. In the Next Generation, Starfleet was a science organization that also served as a military one. After the Dominion War, it became a military organization that dabbled in science in its spare time. So, at this point, I've talked about the Dominion War, I've given a couple of examples of how it's changed everything, and normally I would just leave it at that. However, I want to expand and push outside my comfort zone, so let's take a look at the why, starting with the Maquis.
All right, let's do this one last time.
The Maquis admittedly play a tangential part in this affair, but What interests me is what happened to them. The Maquis, for those unfamiliar, were a group of Federation citizens whose homes were given to the Cardassian Empire. They rebelled, and Starfleet was tasked with going after them. There's more to it, and I'll link my videos on that below, but ultimately, a Starfleet security officer betrayed Starfleet and Space Jesus Sisko. And he did really well, beginning to defeat the Cardassians. Sisko went after him because, well, that's why he had a pimp hand, and had decided that since Eddington used dirty tactics, he could too.
Commander, I said launch torpedoes.
Aye, sir.
You're talking about turning hundreds of thousands of people into homeless refugees.
That's right.
But think about those people you saw in the caves. Huddled and starving, they didn't attack the Malinche.
You should have thought about that before you attacked a Federation starship.
He bombed a planet with biological weapons. While not during the Dominion War, this was impacted by Dominion agents and showed the cracks the Dominion would use to fracture and destroy what Starfleet was. The Starfleet that we knew from TNG would ultimately be gone, and I would argue that it started here. This action was as far removed from the Next Generation era Starfleet as you can get. Even extreme for Star Trek the original series. It was far against the values of the Federation. In fact, Sisko himself later countered his actions, stating, "You don't put civilians' lives at risk."
But you're a Starfleet officer, Worf. We don't put civilians at risk, or even potentially at risk, to save ourselves. Sometimes that means we lose the battle, and sometimes our lives. But if you can't make that choice, then you can't wear that uniform.
You're talking about turning hundreds of thousands of people into homeless refugees.
That's right. You made a military decision.
But think about those people you saw in the caves. Huddled and starving, they didn't attack the Malinche.
You should have thought about that before you attacked a Federation starship, to protect your ship and crew. But you're a Starfleet officer, Worf. We don't put civilians at risk, or even potentially at risk, to save ourselves. Sometimes that means we lose the battle, and sometimes our lives. But if you can't make that choice, then you can't wear that uniform.
Trilithium resin is dissipating throughout the biosphere. The Maquis are scrambling their transport ships. They're starting to evacuate.
Then you can't wear that uniform.
Starfleet has always claimed the moral high ground, ensuring the safety of innocents and even those less innocent. In this case, they didn't, and there were no repercussions. It's interesting how everything comes in a slow fade, from an action that gives people time to escape to an action that is a genocide. But I'm getting ahead of myself. And by the way, I love the different excuses people still come up with to try to justify Sisko's actions. Oh, the people could escape.
Well, that's all right then.
Oh, Eddington did something similar.
Well, that's all right then.
Oh, I'm a white liberal who can't make actual change, so I come to a channel I assume is right-leaning, even though the creator is dating an Asian woman and has dated trans women in the past.
Oh, well, that's all right then.
Anyway, what was I talking about again?
3 months of bloody slaughter, and what have you got to show for it? Not a damn thing. Engage, retreat, engage, retreat. Just once, I would have liked to have gotten a look at their backs.
The war began not long after, and Starfleet was put on the back foot, as I've stated before. Okay, not just put on the back foot. Starfleet was losing badly. Many don't think about it, but the Federation was really on the cusp of being destroyed. It wasn't until arguably mid to late last season of DS9 that the war turned around. During that time, we see Starfleet make very dubious decisions.
Then that's where we'll relocate the mines.
Moving them shouldn't be too difficult. Delicate, but not difficult.
I also want you to reprogram them so that they're triggered by movement.
Make sure it's lots of movement. We want that ravine full of Jemadar when those Houdinis start to go off.
I think we can manage that.
That should take out 1/3 of their forces.
One smaller example is the use of anti-personnel mines. Mines, you know, the thing outlawed in the year 2024 in the real world, though I guess Russia missed that memo, these things would not be used by Starfleet unless they were losing, and everyone was about to die. Now don't get me wrong, I'm pragmatic. If it's the only way to save your life and those under your command, then hell yeah, use them. But we're not talking about what a pragmatic, overweight, charming, and amazingly handsome YouTuber would do. We're talking about what a Starfleet officer would do.
What's the matter, old man? Don't you think it'll work?
It's not that.
It's just that a few hours ago, we thought of these mines as the kind of ruthless weapon only the Dominion would use. But now...
They become a whole lot friendlier.
And a Starfleet officer wouldn't do this. Then there's in the Pale Moonlight. I've talked about this before, and again, more videos will be linked. This action was approved by Starfleet Command, bringing the Romulan Star Empire into the war by lying. At the time, it was one of the most devious things Starfleet had ever done. Antithetical to the next generation, even if they couldn't keep their own morals sometimes. This was the breaking point. Everything discussed before this was aberrant by Starfleet standards, but I truly believe this is where Starfleet changed. They became a full-on military organization willing to sacrifice their morals to save their population, even if that meant some of them couldn't sleep at night. None of that compares to the worst sin Starfleet had ever done by this time. The morphogenic virus, created by Section 31 to kill all the changelings and, again, ensure the war was won. When the Federation, not Starfleet, the Federation Council, had the ability to save an entire race, especially when it was their doing, they created the morphogenic virus. Well, Section 31 did, but it's still a part of them. The Federation Council decided not to. This, in my opinion, is when they lost their soul and something else took its place. The finale of DS9 tried to put a happy bow on all of this, but Starfleet was forever changed. Look, in the end, you may not like the style of the new Star Trek series, or even the writing, but you can't say it's not Star Trek. It is literally how you would write the decay of an organization that went through what they went through. I know some of you are going to get mad at that, but to quote Dickens, or paraphrase, I've shown you these shadows of the things that have been. That they are what they are, do not blame me. Hey guys, what do you think? Did the Dominion War change everything? Are the new series a result of what happened in universe? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next.